This podcast was created to educate listeners on the experiences of diverse individuals. However, all opinions expressed by the host or guests do not reflect the overall standing of Tarleton Radio or Tarleton State University.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Making Space, a Diversity Dialogue. I'm your host, Cole, and this is a bi-weekly podcast where together we'll have questions answered about socially sensitive topics while learning how to create lasting relationships with diverse people. This episode is a part 2 in a 2-part series on learning disabilities and accessible education. In the last episode, we had a discussion with Jericha Hopson, the coordinator with Disability Resources and Testing at Tarleton State University. And she was able to really give us an insight into the administration side of disability resources. If you haven't already, I do recommend going back and listening to that one. But this episode, we'll be talking to a student who has personal experience with her own learning disability, Gabriella Cortez. And she is currently a communication studies major in her senior year at Tarleton State. Thank you for coming on, Gabby.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Gabby. I also go by Gabby instead of Gabriella. But yeah, I am, like I said, a senior communications major. I've had a learning disability ever since I was a young kid, as far as I can really remember.
Okay.
I remember always being pulled out of classes to go do a bunch of testing. I have dyslexia, so that's what I kind of deal with.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it was really a big struggle, but I definitely learned to adapt and just work through it. Was the easiest way, I guess, to get through. Went through a lot of tutorings on Saturdays. A lot of kids were hanging out with their friends. I was having to go to tutoring on Saturdays. Wow. Yeah, it was a lot, but it ended up working out in the long run, and it really helped me in college. And I learned a lot of essential things when I was younger.
Yeah,
a lot of students don't learn until they come to college. So that really helped me in the long run.
Yeah, well, we'll get more into exactly what those specifics are in just a little bit. I did want to visit vocabulary just for a second because, again, this is a 2-part series, so we did go over in the first part, but I wanted to go over it one more time. Learning disabilities in general are just going to be a disorder in one or more basic psychological processes that may manifest itself in the imperfect ability in certain areas of learning, such as reading, writing, expression, and mathematics. So what that all kind of means is that you guys just kind of learn a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't necessarily follow the structure of a normal classroom setting or normal reading or anything like that. You just need a little bit of help in certain areas. Some examples are, like you said, I really can't say that word.
Dyslexia?
Yes,
dyslexia.
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 Yes. Dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder is part of that as well. Some related kind of learning disabilities are autism spectrum disorder and ADHD. The second vocabulary term we're going to go over are accommodations. So those are going to be the things that help you along with your learning disability. Gabby, you can kind of explain this a little bit too. How would you explain accommodations?
Accommodations are there just to help you while you're learning, whether that's during testing or just things like that. It's kind of an extra boost of confidence in a way, really, being able to go to your own room and have your own space and stuff like that. So I guess I would say accommodations are just an extra boost of help.
Yeah. I think Jericha, now that I'm thinking about it, Jericha described it as a way to overcome barriers in learning when you have a disability like that. And I know I've mentioned Jericha Hopson in my intro here, but if you guys are interested or need any help at Tarleton, I will include her information in the description for you guys. I think we're going to go ahead and start off the questions. And you kind of answered this earlier about when you initially found out about your learning disabilities. Can you explain a little more in detail when you first found out that you had a learning disability or how that even came about, how that testing happened?
Yeah, so I was in, I want to say 1st or 2nd grade. I remember I was struggling. I was really behind on like reading and stuff. Like I just couldn't sit there and focus on it. And I couldn't read out loud. Like, that was like the biggest thing for me, having to read something out loud. Even to this day, I still struggle with it. So I remember them having to have us read out loud, and I couldn't. And so the teachers, end up, I guess later on I found out about all this, but they called my parents and are like, we think she's dyslexic, like, are either of you dyslexic? And so apparently it's like a trait that can be carried down. So my dad's dyslexic, like really, really bad. Like, it's so bad. Like, he can't spell or anything like that. So I always give him a hard time about that.
Yeah.
So I got it from him, and then my mom was like, yeah, her father is. So they're like, okay, we would like to run some tests. So they had, of course, get parent approval. So next thing I remember going into like this classroom, like special classroom, and during a period of the day, I would do testing, whether that was putting blocks together. It was almost like an IQ test, because if you're above like a certain number, like you're normally, the smarter you are, the more chances you have dyslexia, which is very interesting.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
So the higher IQ, essentially.
I have like a ridiculously high IQ score. I didn't know that till college, but I found that out later in life. And so they're like, yeah, we think she is. And so they started giving me like colored sheets to read with. That was just kind of like testing the waters. Like, does this help you? Then I got the special dyslexic alphabet. And then from there, I got better. And then we got to math, and I was like, oh God, math is my worst nightmare. Like, I was terrible with numbers. I mixed numbers around all the time. 6s and 9s were my like worst enemies. Especially the alphabet was really hard too. But once
you mentioned before the alphabet, was there a difference between what you learned as far as the alphabet goes than what is regularly taught in the classroom?
So no, I didn't learn anything different. It's just a different font. It's an easier font that helps with people that have dyslexia, because the letters will move around sometimes. When I was younger, it used to be worse, but I've gotten better. There's a special font for dyslexic students they can use, and it helps like not have the letters move around or letters not flip on you, because I would flip letters really bad. So they would have that, and then the colored sheets. So colored sheets were there to help you with the moving around as well. So they started out with those, and all my work was different. It would look like normal, like, Arial font people had. I had the dyslexia font, so I could read it. I didn't struggle with it as much. I still struggled a little bit, but it was just, of course, I had to adapt to it and things like that. So yeah, that was just some of the few, like, touching my feet in the water. And then once I got older, I realized I was dyslexic. Like in 5th grade, I would get pulled out for tests. I'd go get my test read to me, so I could comprehend it, because I understood everything. I was, I didn't struggle in school or anything like that. The hardest part was I couldn't comprehend when I read something. I could read something 50 times and not understand, but if someone sat next to me and read it, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's this, that's the answer. So that was kind of the biggest problem, and that's when tutoring kind of came into effect. My parents realized, like, oh, she's gonna have to take like ACTs and SATs and stuff like that, so I started going to tutoring every Saturday. So kids got to do whatever they want. Then I went to tutoring on Saturdays, pretty much all day. So
did you have to retest for this throughout your entire like school process? Or I don't know. I don't know if it gets better at all. You said maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I retest quite frequently, because students can grow out of it. Unfortunately, I did not, but I did retest, like, I think it was like every other year I'd retest, if not every year.
So administration kind of played a big part in even getting you diagnosed in the first place.
Absolutely. They were the ones that detected it, I would say. They saw, issues or certain things. They're like, yeah, we need to test her. There was other students in my class that were struggling as well. So all of us were in a special class period together, where it was like almost like a dyslexia class.
Oh, wow.
And we went over the stuff extra hard. So it was just there to help. I was really fortunate. I went to a really small school. So it was really helpful. And then I think in 3rd, 4th grade, I had a really bad experience with our dyslexia teacher. She was so mean. She used to call us dumb, like would put us down. It was the worst.
That's not where you should put a teacher.
Oh, it was
so
bad. And I remember always coming home and being so frustrated to my parents. And so, they figured out something, and that's when I started going to tutoring. So yeah, it was.
So you completely stepped away from that kind of program.
I wasn't allowed to with the school. Like, I wasn't allowed to step away from it, but I just ignored her, and I was kind of like, I'm going to do what I want. I was a sassy little kid.
I can imagine. I do. That's hard when the teachers that are supposed to be helping you don't seem to really want to help you at all.
Yeah, and it was super frustrating, because she was a disability teacher, so anybody that had any sort of disability had to be in that section or hour or whatever it was. And she used to be so mean to kids. Like, she would call people dumb and stupid. And I'm like, she used to say the R word, to people that, you don't need to be saying that, because first off, we have terrible confidence when it comes to schoolwork. When I was younger, I was not comfortable. I wasn't confident at all. So having a older person that was supposed to be helping me, telling me that, you're so dumb, you're never going to get this, like, this is pointless.
You kind of take that on as your self-identity.
Absolutely. And so I feel like that even put a stump in the road whenever I was trying to learn and get better. And then, of course, I went to tutoring and it got way better after that. So I started being there. My parents were like, well, just be, don't be mean, but just sit there and listen and nod your head and smile. So I used to be so sassy to her. And I was like, you can only imagine. But yeah, so.
Well, at least you found that tutoring, or your parents found that tutoring to kind of help you out more. So you mentioned the special font that you used. Are there any other accommodations that helped you besides just going to that special hour during that time frame?
Yeah, so some of the accommodations, of course, were I got my test read to me. I had the special font, the colored pages. Also, I would be in a different room when I tested. So it would just be one-on-one. Normally we'd sit in the hallway because that was just the easiest. But in college, my accommodations are way different now than they were there. So I get like notes in advance. I go test in the testing center. I'm in a quiet room, there's it's like a box. So I sit, and so I'm not having to be distracted, because if a pin drops, I'm like, squirrel, like what's happening? So that, and then notes early and stuff like that. So that's kind of the accommodations I have now. But
okay. So I had a question about how is your college experience with your disability different than when you were a kid, when you were in elementary school, middle school, high school?
So from high school to college, I remember my teachers were like, they're not going to help you as much. They're not going to be as accommodating. So you need to get used to, doing everything on your own. And I had that mindset coming into college, like, I'm going to have to do everything on my own, which, yes, I do have to do a little bit on my own. But professors are so helpful. So it kind of surprised me how helpful professors were. So they were like, oh, like, whatever you need, like, just email us and we'll get and take care of things like that. But the persona like the high school teachers had put on professors were like, oh, they're so hard, they don't have the time of day to care about you, and which isn't the case, and that may be at some universities, but at Tarleton it's definitely not like that, which is really awesome. I remember this summer coming into my freshman year of college, I had to come up and talk to the director. I don't think it was Jericha at the time, I think it was a different lady, but I had to talk to her. I had to have a one-on-one meeting. My mom couldn't be there. It was like one of my first okay, I gotta be an adult. So that was the one thing that was kind of scary, but I had to tell them what I wanted. I had to come in with all my paperwork and things like that. So coming to college, I had to know what I need. Like, I need, notes. They kind of gave me an idea before coming, so I can get some thoughts together. So that was really nice. And then they give you a letter, and then you just give it to your professor. So
you kind of had an idea of what you needed beforehand.
Yeah. I'm a very prepared person. So I was like, okay, I've researched all over Google. I was like, what do college students need? Because I didn't know if it was different, or, I thought I was going to be a class of 400 people every class, not, not small classes like I was in high school. So definitely was like, oh, I need to be in a testing center. So got all that. And then I actually have a scholarship. It's more of a grant, I would say, through the state of Texas. So I had to do a bunch of testing. And so I have almost like a mentor, really. Okay. And he calls me like once a month or so, and they pretty much pay for majority of my school. But they help me with whatever I need. So whether that's if I need help, at the beginning of the year, my freshman year, they gave me the Smart Pen. They bought me a Smart Pen.
Oh, wow,
so
that's nice.
I can write my notes, but it puts it on a digital form as well. So stuff like that they helped out with. So it was nice to have that kind of mentor. Plus, if I ever needed anything, I could always run up to the Disabilities office, and they were there to help. So
how did you find out about that grant?
I found it through my counselor. So they had been telling me about it. They were like, you need to fill it out. Like, you have to do it. Like, you're going to get most of your school paid for. So I was like, okay. So I did it, and I did like 3 months worth of testing. I was going like in every week and doing a bunch of testing. And I remember being so annoying because I was like, this is my last summer. Like, I just want to have fun.
Right.
But
I mean, that's...
yeah. So I was like, I was kind of frustrated, but in the long run it works out because now I'm not in like a crazy amount of debt or anything like that. So it's really cool.
So always try to look for those grants and those opportunities,
Yeah.
especially if you're someone with a learning disabilities or disabilities in general.
Yeah, it's called the DARS. I think it's what it's called, DARS.
DARS. Okay.
Yeah, Texas Workforce Solution is who has it.
Listeners, I'll try to find that and try to link it in the description for you guys, or at least somewhere that can lead to other grants for you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that instructors or professors have been pretty receptive. Have you had any, have you had an overall positive experience? Have there been negative experiences with professors trying to get your accommodations?
Yeah, I've had really good experiences. I have had a few that were kind of kind of bumpy. They were at first they were kind of hesitant towards it. They were like it's just an extra step for them. They have to, they have to email the testing center. They have to make sure they have all their stuff done, because if not, they can get in serious trouble with the school. So some of them just kind of give you a frustrated look when you give it, but it's your job. You have to do it no matter what. So that's kind of been a negative experience, but other than that, it's been pretty positive for the most part.
That's good. That's good. How has, speaking to your college experience from before as well as the past year, how did COVID and switching to online classes most of the time affect you, and did you get help in those areas with your accommodations at the same time?
So it killed me. It was so hard because having to sit there and focus on Zoom whenever my dog is running around, or there was so many distractions being at home, and I struggled big time. And so I dropped a lot of my classes. I was like, I cannot do this. I cannot sit in class online. It was so hard for me personally. And I know some of my friends who are also dyslexic, they also struggled big time with it. So I kind of avoid online classes for that reason, because I can't keep up with it. It's so hard. So I really did struggle, but professors were as helping as possible. I also get extended time. That's another accommodation. I remembered it. So I get extended time. It was helpful, but professors most of the time forgot to add it on, so I'd have to take it in the normal time anyways. Even if I did email them the day before, it just was really hard, and there was a lot of technical problems, and so I didn't receive a lot of my accommodations, which kind of stinked. But for the most part, it wasn't bad, but it was rough. Okay. It was not the easiest for sure.
So getting back to a normal, quote unquote, a normal type of schooling and education is going to be really good.
Oh yeah. Last semester was pretty much my most normal I've had. It was a hybrid, and I went to every single class. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to sit at home. I can't, I'm not going to pay attention. I'm not going to take notes. So yeah,
and you were able to go to the testing center again.
Yeah. All that opened back up, which was so nice.
So being a student in your senior year, you kind of have an idea of how it goes. Of course, you've also worked with Tarleton's Welcome Center, so you know how to really get involved with prospective students. What kind of advice would you give prospective students with learning disabilities when coming to Tarleton or coming to college in general?
My biggest advice is to don't be afraid to ask anything. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people here, and people always say that. They're like, oh, don't be afraid to ask. Genuinely, don't be afraid. It may seem scary because you're having to ask these people that are way older than you. You're like, I need help. But they're always there. And that was probably my biggest piece of advice someone gave to me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to run with this. I'm not really a shy person, so I'll just ask for whatever I need. And being able to make friends that also have the same disability as you is a big, I would say, key factor. They understand your struggle, so you can really bounce off of each other and just help each other out.
So where, I don't mean to sound insensitive or anything, but where do you find other people to be friends with?
The first day of class, at the end of the class, the professor will be like, if you have any accommodation notes, you can bring it stand up and bring it up. So you'll see the people with a piece of paper, and you make friends with those people. You're like, I want to be friends with you. So you just talk to them and chat with them, and they're like, oh, do you have dyslexia too? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you want to be friends and study together? We'll probably help each other out. And so it always works out. So normally at the end of class, I stayed up there and I'm like, who got papers? Because they all look the same.
Yeah.
So I'm like, have
you ever been in a class that haven't had anyone but you that needed accommodations? Really?
No, there's so many people.
Wow.
You'd be really surprised.
I truly am. I know Jericha in the previous episode mentioned a number, and it was honestly a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, it's a lot. And another key thing was like, I have to use these accommodations. Like, I got them, like, and I got to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't use them. They'll have them, but they won't use them. They're too scared to use them.
So don't be afraid to take the help.
Yeah.
It's not putting you above anyone else. It's breaking those barriers down for you.
Absolutely.
So one of my final questions is, how do you think Tarleton could improve for disabled students?
Ooh, this is a good question. Maybe having seminars.
Seminars, like disability seminars?
Yeah, like maybe seminars or some sort of mentor, like a student mentor would be like a mentor program. That would be really cool. I think that'd be something that would be cool to implement. Having a student that is maybe a senior pair up with someone that's a freshman that's also like the same disability. So like I would mentor like someone that's just like saying be like, it's okay. Because I was kind of panicky at first. Like it just really stressed me out coming to college. So maybe something like that would be really cool, where they could talk to them, because we have adults here and, you know, they're here to like take care of us, not take care of us, but help us out with whatever we need. But sometimes having someone who's a little closer to age and that's a little bit more relevant to your life and can understand you a little bit better would be easier to talk to and open up to and be like, hey, I'm really struggling. Like, can you help me? Maybe something like that would be interesting.
Really amazing. That's a good idea. We might have to bring that up to Jericha when I might email her about it, or you can email her about it. Just maybe it's a program where you can opt into it.
Yeah.
If you're a disabled student. That'd be great.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. All right. Are there any other kind of topics we didn't cover about learning disabilities or about your personal experiences that you might want to share?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right, folks. There are plenty more topics to go over, and of course there's plenty of material out there about these topics and specifically about learning disabilities. If there was any questions that we didn't get answered for you, try looking at the description. I am including a bunch of links for you there, hopefully about the DARS grant or scholarship, as well as the Disabilities Resources and Testing Center at Tarleton State. I'll have that in the description as well, and some other stuff. If you don't find your answers in all of that, you can always message us at the Planet 100.7, the radio station we're based out of, on Facebook, Instagram, and or Twitter. That's where you can get updates on the show as well. Be sure to check back every other Tuesday for new episodes. At 5 p.m. is when they come out. Thank you for coming on, Gabby.
Thank you for having me.
All right, listeners, until next time, folks, be safe out there and take care.
This has been a Tarleton Radio Network podcast with production from me, Taylor Welch, and me, Brianna Blanks. Find more great shows by searching Tarleton Radio Network wherever you get your podcasts.